Welcome, everybody, to We the Parents podcast, episode 12. And my guest is family law attorney from Tennessee, Connie Reguli. How are you, Connie?
Oh, I'm great. How are you tonight, Chris?
I'm doing great. We got a little late start because we're messing with all kinds of buttons and I messed things up. But we're starting 15 minutes late, but we can go as long as you want tonight. I want to start by letting you introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you. Thank you. So, probably a lot of your audience has at least heard my name, maybe seen some of my videos, my live videos. I am Connie Reguli. I am an attorney in Middle Tennessee. I started really fighting the court system back in 1997.
Good.
So for all you people who've been think you fought it 2 or 3 years, I'm just telling you, it's a whole lot worse when you've been in that swamp a lot longer. But I have represented hundreds of families and dads and moms and just, kind of all over the place in child support cases and child welfare cases and custody cases.
Yeah.
And, I do want people to know the one thing that's a little bit interesting, a couple things. I came into law late in life, number one. I didn't even finished law school until I was 42. My family had been in business. We had opened and operated restaurants for 20 years. And also before I went into law school, I did all my master's training in social psychology. So I have this whole background that I came into law way back in 1994 with a conflict management dispute resolution orientation, and then it's like being thrown into a pack of wolves.
So the profession that you went into was very opposite of this conflict resolution.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it is. And they thought they were enlightened when 10, 15 years later they decided to do mediation and
Right.
ADR and stuff. But there's the law business, the law profession is so archaic. It is so archaic. It is so closed. I mean, it's like a secret society. They have all these secret rules.
I know.
Yeah.
Are you an outcast?
I'm a little bit. It's really hard for them to well, of course, they're trying to get rid of me totally. I'm under indictment, which is coming up pretty soon. So that'll be big news when we finally resolve that. They've tried to get rid of my license several times. I'm currently under another investigation on that. And it's all because I call them out. The most recent one is because 5 different judges are not happy because I've called them out for ex parte orders,
They don't want to be challenged, do they?
Yeah. And when I said I wanted to do depositions on them, they all freaked out and backed off. But the whole law profession, even just the way we operate court, it's so bizarre. And, when I first started becoming an activist back in 2008 and 9, and because a judge put me in jail. Oh, hey, Bobby. So a judge put me in jail and for contempt, in which he was not truthful in what he said. So I went to the legislators, and one of the first thing I asked for was that every court have video and audio recording. You would have thought I was asking that every
firstborn
have a spaceship, right?
Because you would have thought that you were going to tell them that they can only see their kids every other weekend. That's how bad it was. But no.
Yeah. So, and this was back when it was quote unquote standard visitation. But I could see back in 2008 and 9, just the way the courtrooms operated were so bizarre. Yeah. And I had a judge call me a jerk in an open courtroom full of attorneys and people. And I had asked for something that was perfectly legal. And I had contested one of his buddies, something one of his buddies wanted to do. And so he called me what are you trying to be, a jerk? Well, he conveniently forgot that he said that. And so after that, I started carrying one of these little guys all the time.
I have one of those.
It's I bought the upgrade to $130. So, then I can plug it directly into and I've gone through about 6 generations of these. This one plugs in directly to my computer and it time date stamps all the recordings. And so
but as an attorney, you're entitled to have these recording devices. We're not, as pro se litigants.
Well, I will tell you, thank you for bringing that up, because I'll tell you something interesting. There's actually a statute in Tennessee that says that attorneys can record proceedings And there's a case that backs that up and says that if attorneys can have recording devices, pro se litigants can have recording devices.
You would think, because you are technically representing yourself, right?
That's the law, yeah.
That is
But
the law.
they had to go to the Court of Appeals, of course, to get that. But but I had just as recently as last year a juvenile court judge in Knox County, and I always take my little recorder. There's a red light that comes on, and I always check and make sure the red light's on. I don't make any secrets about it. I lay it right on the table. Everybody can see it. And
it holds them accountable.
Yeah, well, I took a break and I turned it off, and the judge looked at me and he goes, "Have you been recording this? You need to delete that right away." And I just
you're not my boss.
I just looked at him, and in that case, fortunately, there was a guardian ad litem involved that was local, because I was not local. And of course, I go to a lot of counties, and they always try to eat you up and home cook you when you're not from that county. And so I'd been joking around with the guardian ad litem about just how things operated in the county. And so he actually spoke up for me, and he was like, "Judge, she did let you know he was recording." Well, I came back to Nashville. I wrote him a letter. I quoted the statute that said that I'm entitled to record, and I didn't appreciate him getting angry with me. And of course, he never said a word about it again. So
I'm sorry or nothing. How many times have you been in jail for not breaking the law, but for upsetting an egotistical judge?
Twice.
Twice?
Twice, yeah.
Oh. So that is illegal, right? Judges don't have the authority to do such things.
Well, so the first time they put me in jail, a judge said that I was in contempt of court because I had instructed a client to violate a court order. So I didn't violate a court order. Supposedly, I told the client to violate a court order, which I did not. And the judge knew I did not, because he was talking about a court proceeding where he had access to the transcript. And he didn't even call my client to testify in the contempt hearing, to testify as to whether or not I told him to say that or not, because of course he couldn't ask my client that because of attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
And so without any evidence, he sentenced me to 10 days, and I appealed it, and I won on appeal. But then they sanctioned me because I said the judge had retaliated against me. So
yeah, because that's what happened.
Yeah, because that is exactly what happened. He retaliated and he lied.
What do we do,
Connie? Say the judge lied.
What do we do with these out of control, egotistical, authoritarian public servants? What do we do?
Well, I will tell you, something very important happened in Tennessee, and it's about to explode. So on February the 4th of this year, the Court of Appeals issued this opinion called Chase v. Stewart. And it came out February 4th, 2021. Why don't you type that down there so people can see it?
What's it called?
Chase, Chase v. Stewart.
Okay.
Stewart. And it's February 2021. And they can Google that much. Chase v. Stewart, February 2021, Tennessee. And they'll get this opinion. And it's an opinion where the Court of Appeals actually retroactively recused the judge because he just couldn't help himself. I mean, he was like blabbing in the courtroom about how he was going to get even with people.
Yeah.
I totally lost it. He was, there you go. Yep. He was totally out of control. So that's a retroactive recusal, and it happened to be associated to a case that I'm working on as well. So so we just have to keep pushing back on him and record, document. I try to prepare a lot of parents when they're going through dependency proceedings, and I say, don't be afraid to ask questions, and people are so scared, they're so frightening. I'll tell you a funny story. When I started, I was a DA because I needed to get some experience. So I worked district attorney in Davidson County for domestic violence. And they'd call the docket, and people would come up to the podium and stuff. And the judge would go like, "Are you entering a plea of guilty or not guilty?" And this one poor guy goes, "Not guilty, Your Highness." And we're like, "Your Highness, what is that?"
I have been, the last time, Connie, I was in the courtroom, I was observing. I watch things a little different now with the experience. Obviously, I work in the restaurant business. I'm a musician as well. So anytime I go out to eat or I go to a concert, I have a new perspective about what's going on. I can see and feel the room. I know what's happening. Now, when I go to a courtroom, I'm very observant, and it seems like another day at the office for all these attorneys, for all these judges. Everyone's high fiving and giggling and talking about how drunk they got on the weekend, and it's a joke. Some of them, these sheriffs are in there cutting up this and that, and they are literally. And then court's in session, and everyone that's in there is like a redheaded stepchild, and we're all bad people on this side, and we can be
Right.
abused, and that is not how it works.
Yeah,
And we have got to not only make fun of them because this is ridiculous,
it is.
and not to be disrespectful to any good people, attorneys, judges, sheriffs, anyone out there who's doing their job, and no one's saying they can't have fun at work, but it is a joke. It
Yeah,
really
it
is a
is.
joke, and we are not. We are our judicial system, especially in obviously our arena, in the family law arena, is catastrophic, and it's
No, it is.
abusive, and it's because, would you say, I mean, they're protecting their business.
Yeah, they are for sure. Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Because
just crazy.
obviously our kids are not any better over the last 50, 60 years
No,
with divorce on the rise and custody battles being taken
no,
place.
no.
Our kids are worse off than
Yeah,
they've
they
ever
are.
been.
And
So what
yeah,
they're doing is not working.
and the courtroom is the last place you need to resolve issues with children. The absolute last
That's
place.
what Dr. Phil said.
I mean, it's, and I tell people this as well. I'm like, when I was a DA, every person that was on the docket was nothing more to me than a file, right?
Right.
You're nothing more than a piece of paper to them.
Uh-huh.
And that's why if I have anybody that I'm taking in a courtroom with kids, of course, they don't want kids in the courtroom. So
Sure.
I take 100 pictures. I mean, I put together, we go to, print up pictures. We create a book of pictures, and I hand them to the judge, and I start having the client go through them. And I'm like, okay, let's tell the judge about your family. And oh my gosh, they go like, we're not going to spend our time going through all of that. And I'm like, okay, well,
Right.
judge, well, I'm going to hand it to you, and you can sit and look at it.
Just skim
And
over it.
yeah, right. So every time I'm like, you got to make it real to the judge, because your child is nothing more than a piece of paper and
Right.
a date of birth.
You're an
Right?
afterthought once that case is over with and that's heard, and people walk out the door with their lives ruined. They don't give a second thought
No,
about my children or the things that I go through or anybody.
no,
And that's the advice that I get, especially even coming from people who are willing to speak out in your profession and go, you don't want to handle your family business in this courtroom. These courtrooms are not equipped to
right.
be in the best interest of anyone involved.
Right. I know. And I've done this a long time, and I always tell people, people ask me how their case is going to go, and I say, well, partly it's going to depend on, how much conflict there is between you and your spouse. It's also
Right.
going to depend a lot on who the attorney is on the other side, because
Mhm.
I've worked a lot with attorneys. I have a reputation. I'm always going to be prepared if I have to go to court. I'm a great litigator, but honestly, I mean, the litigation is the last place I want to be. I mean,
Right.
litigation is kind of, I don't want to use the word fun, but it is kind of fun,
The game. It's a
Well,
game in a sense, I
it's,
guess.
it's a very highly complex board game.
Right.
Okay. It's extremely complex, because you have all these rules and the rules of evidence, and you have all these things going on. And I always tell my clients, like, look, if we do have to have a trial, you need to watch me. I says, because I'm watching you, I'm watching the judge, I'm watching the court reporter, I'm watching the other attorney,
Mm.
and I'm watching the other party. And, and I'm like, if I ask you a question twice and you look at me like, why are you asking that question? Trust me, I'm asking you that question again because the judge wasn't listening, and it's an important question. So just answer it again.
Right. Right.
Don't think I'm half asleep and I don't know
Right.
what I'm doing. So, but it's very stressful. I always sweat like a dog, when I'm
Sure.
having a trial, because it's like so stressful, and you only get a few bathroom breaks, and you get dehydrated. And I mean, you got to have everything squared away and ready to go. But it's something I can do very well. But on the
Mhm.
other hand, I'm also a great negotiator because I had all the study in this conflict resolution, and I go through all these steps with clients on
Right.
what we can negotiate on and what we can't, and where we need to hold firm, and when we just need to say no, we'll go to court, or when we need to say let's sit down and talk about what it's worth.
Right.
But a lot of attorneys are lazy. A lot of attorneys are lazy. A
Well,
lot
it's
of
just
them.
like literally, Connie. I have a motion to modify on Cinco de Mayo, so hopefully there'll be something to celebrate. But um, I attached the newest shared parenting bill that came out in 2016, 2015, in here in North Carolina.
Mhm.
And one of the main points that it exercises is it recognizes that maximizing the amount of parenting time with each parent is priority,
Mhm.
unless there is a very crucial reason. And that doesn't mean if you don't like my haircut or if I'm doing podcasts and I'm saying offensive things to you. It's very specific. There's certain criteria, like the child has to be in danger. And
Right.
being that I have my kids every other weekend and whenever their mother wants to hand them off to me, and I was always allowed to raise them prior to this whole nonsense,
Right.
there is nothing to argue. Although they will, I'm sure her and her attorney will try, and they'll use things like, the fact that a father is willing to start a podcast to talk about how terrible this is and
Right.
make him out to be a bad father because of it. It's a
Yeah.
joke, and if
Oh
that
my gosh, they do
happens,
that. It's so hilarious when they do that. They do
and
that all the time. They're
yeah,
like, she's speaking out on social media, and I'm like,
yeah. Sorry,
well,
I'm not hurting anyone, but I am
yeah,
voice. I'm trying to keep my cool by speaking out.
right,
I'm not
right.
smashing windows, and I'm not looting and pillaging, and I'm not hurting anyone physically, but I am trying to have a good time. I'm trying to laugh at the jokes. We talk about serious issues on this show, and we're educating the public, and the problem is we're threatening their business, and the industry needs to be dismantled. It needs to be taken
Oh,
apart.
absolutely,
It does not need to
absolutely.
be a courtroom thing unless there is a crime of abuse committed, and that gets done in criminal court. Civil
Right.
court is ridiculous. Family law needs to be over. I know it's probably the number one money maker in the judicial branch, I would assume. Because what have they done? They've picked the one thing that people will fight to the death for. They will give
Mhm.
everything they have, and if they don't have it, they will get it.
Well, you know what though? It's also about money. I mean, it's the same thing with the child welfare advocacy that I do. As soon as you step into the divorce court, your kid has a dollar sign on their head.
They're
You know,
monetized. Yep.
I mean, the same thing with foster care and with child welfare. And, as soon as they end up in the child welfare system, their kid has a dollar sign on their forehead. And,
Exactly.
they do in family law. And I will tell you many, many times, I have seen custody issues rage over the child support issue, and
Right.
we can move right into the child support issue because I think Title 4D should be abolished, but for welfare.
Right.
So if there is welfare involved, then Title 4D can be involved. But
Right.
even with that, I mean, if you stop and think about it, so, and that's where it started really, was the whole welfare and the recouping of welfare. But then I also kind of go like, well, you don't require that mom to start paying back welfare after her
Nope.
kids are grown. So
Nope.
why are you requiring this dad to pay back welfare? It's like,
Yep.
we need to look at this a little bit more equitably. But I think Title 4D should be totally dismantled,
Absolutely.
except for welfare. And then when it comes to the courtroom and to the cost of caring for children, I mean, I think you talk about the children first. You
Mhm.
talk about where the children need to, how the parents are going to set up their lives, how they're going to, look at their overhead and their cost and what kind of
Sure.
lifestyle they're living. And then you look at the actual cost of child rearing,
Well, if there
and of
was
course,
never if there was never an issue with money until a separation happened, what seems to be happening is we're giving the financially unfit parent the child and going, all right, well, we'll put you on Medicaid and we'll provide all this for your kid, but we got to make dad pay. But in order to make dad pay, we got to reduce his time with him. and then we got to
Right.
justify it. So
Oh my
we don't
gosh.
really have any justification. So what we're going to do is keep dragging it out in court till he runs out of money. He either puts a bullet in his head, or he just stops fighting,
Yeah.
or he
Yeah.
gets in trouble for doing something else.
Yeah. And then you
Like,
get more taxpayer money. If he does put a bullet in his head, then
oh
there's,
yeah. Or
when it's all our money, it's
if I
all our
lose
money.
if I lose
It's
my
all
cool and I
our
go
cars.
over her house and try to fight her boyfriend or something like that, try to trigger someone by stealing their kid and go, well, he'll probably do something crazy. Yeah, I started a podcast and I'm talking to a family law attorney about how crazy the system is. And you're
Right.
not going to
Right.
catch me doing anything beyond that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And
It's
my
crazy.
kids will see this. They will see this. And I hope they settle it before all this comes out, really.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I know we're talking about why we do this, and
yeah.
I know what my spiritual gifts are, and their advocacy and encouragement. So,
Yeah.
that's my job in life, and I went through some pretty tough times at a couple different periods of my life, and after you, like Job, after you quit saying, "Why did you do this to me?" Then you finally come back and go, "Okay, I surrender, and you just tell me what to do every day, and I'll get up and do it." So,
Right.
I still continue to work. I do have a private practice. COVID has done strange things to the practice of law and my private practice, but I am still working, but advocating and trying to make change is a mission. And so, and we've all got to look at it as a mission. So a couple of the things, and I want to make sure we address this before we run out of time, because it's important. So a couple of things that I'm doing, I'm looking into 2022, and we have some very important elections coming up, and we have congressional candidates coming up. We have there'll be a lot of state governors coming up. I think for sure, I think probably the most famous one's going to be Sarah Huckabee in Arkansas, but a lot of governor races will be coming up. So I have in particular already located a couple of potential congressional candidates, and one of them is Tennessee, and we are already kind of sat down and looked at making a family policy plan part of his platform. So, we've got to make it some of the speaking points. And, and I swear, just like, President Trump made getting out of prison and the First Step Act, I mean, he made that conversation. And honestly, before he said that, we weren't even talking about what happens to people when they get out of prison, even though we knew it was horrible. So
we don't care. We don't care what happens when veterans come home. We don't care what happens when custody gets taken from parents. We don't care. They just make decisions.
We don't care. And, so the First Step Act made getting out of prison a conversation. We're going to make family policy overall part of the conversation. I mean, and ultimately it will cover even relationships of families in prison. But, it's going to look at it's going to look at custody situations. It's going to look at child welfare. It's going to look at child support. It probably will end up going over and dealing with child medical and wellness decisions, as well as education, because right now there's some really scary things going on in education that have to do with religious training and Islam, whatever you call it. Islamism and sex education in the schools, and the critical race theory. I mean, all three of those things have kind of reared their ugly head, and we have a lot of people who are really thinking about homeschooling now and what we're going to do about that. So the Family Policy Committee, or the Family Policy Platform, is going to be very important for 2022. I'm going to do a call out to all your listeners, whatever your state you're in and whatever congressional district you're in. Find out who your congressman is, and let's identify them, and let's put this family policy piece on their platform,
on the front.
On the front line, on the questions, and people have got to be contacting them and talking to them. There'll be a lot of state races coming up, a lot of state reps. It's going to be very, very hotly contested, because we know from the 2020 election, our state legislators control our national election and a lot of our election laws. So I think there's going to be a lot of hot state level races, and a lot of people don't even know who their state reps are. They don't
Right.
even know who their congressmen, their
Yeah.
general assembly people are. So
I just started learning as soon as I started getting into it when this happened. I may run in 22 myself. You should run. Are you
well,
running?
so let me tell you. So back in 2000, what year was it? 18, I think it was 2018. That's a long time ago, but yeah. So that was kind of shortly after. I mean, while I was still doing advocacy, and it was way before that. Oh no, it was like 2008. It was way back then. I was really upset with the way things were going, and I did go pull a petition and had got enough signatures to put it on the ballot for the state rep. And I was running against this guy that had been in office like 30 years. But I did it late. I didn't have much time. We spent like $1,000. I had like a half a dozen people go out with me, and we got like 20% of the vote. So we were real excited about that.
Just for sort of on a whim.
Yeah, on a absolute whim.
That's good.
And they tried to do publicity against me. This is part of why I'm so hated, because I would dare to do such a thing in the county that I live in.
I love it. I think you inspire me. You're just like me.
Yeah. Well,
I think, this is how these bad actors and abusive people need to be treated. Doesn't mean we need to abuse them, but we need to expose them and laugh at them. They're a joke.
They're so vengeful. They're so vengeful. So, and before that, when I had moved down here, there was a judicial seat that had come open in about 2004, 5 or 6, something like that. And I did a very detailed judicial application. And I am a very good old boy county that has a lot of money, a lot of politics, a lot of GOP swamp here. And it drove him crazy. And so I've already done that. I would really like to be on a broader spectrum and be a family policy leader, both at the state and federal level. So I don't think I'll run for office. However, I have not taken that off the plate. I have a home in 2 different districts in Tennessee, and I've looked at both of those districts to see if one would be better than the other. They're both Republicans, and they're both kind of okay guys. So I don't really need to knock them out of office. But if they don't join the team, I may consider that the next time around as well. But
I mean, I'm happy to work with my representatives that are currently in office if they're willing to adopt this. If not, then I'm running against them.
Right. So the other thing I'm doing, I belong to an organization at the state level. It's called the Tennessee Republican Assembly, and it's there's a federal organization called the National Federation of Republican Assemblies, and it's Republicans with a very, very conservative, very detailed platform that is, pro-life, and can't tell you all of it, but I know from the family position. I did get in 2017 to them to adopt a resolution to add to their platform about child welfare and how the government was abusing and recreating families, which they really didn't have the right to do. I think God is the first choice on that. So, So what our national federation has in the bylaws the opportunity to create a special committee. So I am going to, excuse me, I heard something over there.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm going to ask the national organization to create a special committee in family policy, so that people kind of understand the influence on the state legislators. I'm also going to tell them this. So there's 2 national organizations. One of them is called ALEC, which is the American Legislators Executive Council. And that is a national organization that is for the basically Republican legislators, where they put out policy. And then there's another one on the liberal side, which is, it takes me a while to remember it, but it's National State Legislators something Council. And so they will put out policies that are more liberal. Now, the problem is what I found, and this is why we have to have a National Family Policy Council, is because all of these proposals that they put out there are always piecemealed. Right? It's always one little thing here and one little thing here. And one of the biggest problems that we have in family law is family law was not derived from common law, which is where a lot of our American laws derive from. Family law is all statutory law. So every single thing that applies to family and the government's control of a family is written down by your legislators. And what's happened over the years is like layer after layer after layer after layer of law. And it's like the little boy poking the hole, putting his finger in the dike. right?
Uh-huh.
Because it's like you have these little holes all over the dike. And it's like they like, I mean, it's hilarious. If you watch how state laws are passed, it's like really hilarious because, you have these little county reps and they'll get a call from somebody in their community and it'll be like, my cousin's child was, and we need a law that says you can't do that, right?
That it's not
Then
nice.
they'll write like some little law. Oh, very good. Thank you.
I was
Go to
searching for this
videos.
while you were chatting. I know you wanted me to pull this up.
Yeah, go to the videos tab. That's better. Go to Oh, there
You
you
can
go.
go on the videos tab.
Yeah.
Let's just do that. Is there one in particular that you wanted to want me to share?
Well, if you just scroll through there, I mean, people can see I have over 100 videos up there, and a lot of them are me doing Facebook Lives through the Family Forward Project.
This
You'll
was my
see
favorite. The Wells Fargo lady.
yeah, the Wells Fargo.
The cop. She was so sweet and misinformed about the law, but she's cute behind that mask, I bet.
Yeah, she's very cute. She was probably
Yes.
23.
I
Yeah,
know. She's a baby.
yeah. And then the one right underneath of that, did you watch that? The Williamson
The
County.
Williamson? No, I have not.
Okay, you need to watch it. It's 4
I
minutes long.
will.
So go back to the front of that. That lady right there in the plaid dress is the
Mhm.
Attorney General, and I get in a fight with her. So yeah, so you've got to
Would
watch
you
that.
like me to play it right now?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do
We
because
can
it's
totally watch
hilarious.
this right now.
Yeah, it's
Let's click
hilarious.
on this one and just have a listen.
Hey, we're still trapped on
Oh,
Earth.
that's
These
not
are-
it.
Yeah,
Everything
it's,
is back to
you
normal
know, when you
now,
don't pay for YouTube,
Oh,
Looks like
they want to throw
okay.
ads at
Here
you.
we go.
My name is Todd Davis. with the
You have to turn it up a little bit, maybe.
Lebanon, Tennessee. The time and date is March 4th, 2000.
Oh, give it a second, 'cause, yeah. Give it a second. There's an official videographer there, and he had to do a little introduction.
District 6 Board of District Personnel Responsibility of the Tennessee Supreme Court of Sharon Guffey. Any stipulations we've said on the record, counsel should identify themselves on the record. Yep.
Okay, before we begin today, we need to address who is present in the room and their authority to do so. So, Ms. Kleinfelter, can you introduce yourself on the record, please?
Janet Kleinfelter.
And watch your eyes blink. Here today.
I'm here to represent the department.
All right, and can you give me the statutory authority? You work for the Attorney General's office, is that correct?
Yes.
And can you give me the statutory authority for
Title
you?
8 of the Tennessee Code annotated.
Okay, give me the specific.
I cannot give you the specific site. Title 8 gives the authority.
She's blinking a lot.
Mhm.
Her eyes dry.
She also had a pen in her hand, and she kept doing this. She was like,
She's nervous.
yeah.
I tried to find that because you were present on the conference call on Friday.
And you're saying Mr.
Okay, hold on, please don't talk over me.
That would be me.
Get him, Connie.
On Friday, February the 26th, which we had with the panel, is that correct?
Yes.
And in
Yes.
that discussion, I asked for you to provide me the statutory authority for which you could represent a judge as a witness, and in particular, a county employee who's not a state employee. Do you recall me asking you that?
No, I do not recall you asking, nor do I recall.
What a bitch.
You to provide that authority.
I'm not saying they directed you to. I'm saying I asked you.
Is the volume better?
To provide me that.
A little bit.
No, I recall the hearing panel
Now listen to this.
that third-party witnesses are entitled to be represented by counsel.
All right, so I do have a recording of that conversation, which.
And I did not consent to that conversation being recorded.
I did not consent.
Honest people don't care about that.
And it's a one-party state, first of all, isn't
I
it?
agree.
And it was a proceeding.
It's a one-party state.
Not a proceeding, my understanding it was just a conference call.
She's
It was a proceeding.
And poor Alan. He's clueless.
Correct? Because there were rulings made from that phone call. Is that correct?
Not during the course of that phone call.
Here, let me pick my nails.
It is recorded, Ms. Klein.
he's uncomfortable.
All right, so I'm going to show you, and I'm going to mark this as the first exhibit. This is TCA section 842-103, when the Attorney General's office is entitled to act as defense counsel For state employees, A, when a civil action for damages is commenced in any court by any person against a state employee. I printed out the whole section, so if you can find something else in there, in that section that would give you authority, please point it out to me. I tried to read it
The
carefully.
administrative office of the court has requested that our office provide representation to Judge Guthrie.
Okay,
You are here
administrative,
on that basis. The
administrative,
administrative office of the courts is part of the Tennessee state government.
administrative
branch.
offices of the courts is not a person. What person in that office gave you the authority to do that?
That is not a person.
Okay, who there? Because I want to talk.
But she doesn't want to get anybody in trouble.
No, I can't give you.
Because she
that.
didn't talk to anybody.
Invited
If you
to
are
stay.
objecting to my representing Judge Guthrie, then we will terminate the deposition because Judge Guthrie is entitled to have counsel representing her during the course of this deposition. And if you're objecting to my presence, then we will terminate the deposition and proceed forward. And
Okay.
you will then have to subpoena Judge Guthrie.
Subpoena? Subpoena?
They get so
Okay, I'm
serious.
speaking in her behalf right now. Is that correct?
Judge Guthrie, do you have any disagreement with the position that I have just taken?
Okay, so you
Of course
are a
not.
state employee. You are not a personal attorney for Judge Guffey. Is that correct?
You just heard Judge Guthrie state.
No, I'm asking you a question, ma'am. You are paid by the taxpayers. You work for the taxpayers, not Judge Guffey. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you
Judge
are,
Guthrie has been subpoenaed in her capacity as an official, not in her personal capacity.
I want to say, take the damn mask
How do you
off.
know that?
Because the
She's
subpoena
hiding.
was directed to her as Judge Guthrie.
But she is a county employee and she is not being
Again,
sued for civil
Ms. Reguli,
damages.
if you're
No, I
objecting-
want to know the authority,
Ms.
ma'am. You
Reguli,
are
if
a
you're
taxpayer
objecting-
employee.
If you're objecting to me being here representing Judge Guthrie, then we are terminating the deposition.
I am objecting to you
Okay, then
being
we are
here.
terminating the deposition.
Under what authority?
Under the authority that Judge Guthrie, as any other third-party witness, is entitled to be represented by counsel. And if you're objecting to my representation, then we are terminating the deposition, and you will need to reissue a subpoena in accordance with the rules of civil procedure.
Watch all the way to
So
the
I
end.
have asked you for authority
Judge
for
Guthrie,
you to
we have
represent
already
her.
restated
I
our
have asked
position.
you, I have asked you
That's what.
It is
for your
terminated.
authority
Keep
to
going.
act. I have asked you for the person at the administrative office of the courts, and you refused to give those to me. Is that correct? Is that correct, Ms. Kleinfelter? You do work for the taxpayers, right?
You do work for the taxpayers.
That's fantastic. You could see how when you expose BS and evil, they get squirmy. And honest people can sit there and we can be transparent. You can record us. We have no problem with recordings or videos or anything like that. I have no problem ever being recorded.
And the problem is that
Obviously.
they have gotten away with so much for so long because people just do what they say,
Right.
They're like, oh, there must be a law. I'm like, okay, show me the law.
Yeah.
And this is what I ask, when people are going through child welfare cases too. I mean, I am very, I train this over and over. And if they say it's against our policy, I'm like, okay, ask for the policy.
Right.
And say, well, is there any, show me the policy and show me where it says that. I mean, they hate that. They hate that.
They don't know half of them don't know the law. They're just taking orders from a judge or somebody. And like you said, well, he's not your boss. Like, you don't work for him. You work under the same, you all work, the judges, what is she, who is she, an administrative?
She was a deputy attorney general.
Oh, so she's kind of a big deal, but she still
This is
works
a very
for us.
big
She
deal.
works.
As a matter of fact, I called the
She
attorney
was-
general's office and I said,
Right.
I want to talk to Jana Kleinfelder's boss because I'm not happy with the way she acted in my office. And they're like, that would be the attorney general. And I'm like, well, I want to talk to him.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I'll get you somebody who'll take your complaint down. And then let me tell you this. So then I sent an open records request to the Attorney General's office to get her emails. They put her in charge of pulling her emails, and they charged me $90 for her time to pull those emails.
Of course, because everything's about money.
And it's all like, wait, I'm like thinking, wait a minute, I'm a taxpayer and
Mhm.
I'm paying her salary already. And so now you want me to pay extra.
Right. Sure. And you're bothering them.
Yeah. And it's like they just make it up as they go. They just want to say they have authority and they just
This is an
twist their-
authoritarian judicial system, and it
Oh
needs
my
to go
God, it's
because
so
it's not.
bad.
It is bad,
It's so bad.
and this is what it's going to take to embarrass it, laugh at it. It's a joke, and again, not everyone. Okay, please watch this whole thing, rewind it. I've said this. Connie would agree. We're not talking about every judge. We're not talking about every attorney. We're talking about too much of you. Too much of you are terrible, and you're going. This is just like business as usual, or you're just comfortable in your job, and you just don't want to deal with things, or you're having personal issues, or you probably need therapy yourself. But you're literally making decisions about people's lives, people
Well,
who are trying to raise their children, and a lot of these judges shouldn't even have raised their own kids.
well, I'll tell you, I've been doing this for 27 years, and I say when you know which judges are alcoholics, which ones are snorting cocaine,
You can
which
look at
ones
their
are hiring
faces.
prostitutes, who's messing with the secretary behind the scenes, who's going to
Right.
private parties with the attorneys.
Right.
I mean, when you know all of that,
It's a
it's
good-
like, maybe it's time for me to exit stage left.
It's no different working in a courtroom than when I was in my 20s working at Applebee's. I went out with the hostesses and the bartender, and that's the same thing. They're just wearing suits and they're destroying lives.
Right.
That's the only difference. Is
Yeah,
they're,
and then-
they're more
and there's-
powerful.
And there's a true game to it in there with some of these people that's really quite frightening. It's like they
Yeah.
really like the whole gotcha thing,
Right.
and and they that's part of the ploy. That's part of the plot. So yeah, we have a system that's a mess, and we need to keep calling it out and just and this is until you guys get it that you're failing. I mean, we have in Tennessee a 50% divorce rate, and then not only that, we have a huge number of paternity cases, and I think I probably need to go pull the stats on this, but we have a huge number of cases that are paternity cases that we're putting kids before the court. So, we've got to really look at how many thousands of children are being put at the mercy of the court system every year. I mean, we really need to look at that number.
Right. And like you said, it's just they don't care because they're all getting paychecks and they're making big paychecks. And I am sickened that they use the term child's best interest in family court, because it is the furthest thing from I'm witnessing it firsthand. I have no idea why I've lost 2.5 years with my kids. No idea.
And first of all, best interest comes from Germany, right? That comes from Nazi Germany.
Wait, explain that to me. Oh,
And
yeah, is that what Hitler said? Hitler said.
And secondly, I'm like, how can you ever decide what the best interest of a child is if you've not been in that child's home, seen that child interact with their parents?
And you're not their parent. You don't decide that.
Well, and it's
This
like
is America.
Right. It's like, what? They throw that whole best interest thing around. I call them judicial cliches. The whole child welfare system has its own set of judicial cliches. It has contrary to the welfare of a child. Like, we're not going to let a child go spend time with their parent because it's contrary to their welfare. It's like, don't you need some findings of fact for that? There's reasonable efforts. There's least drastic alternatives. So, we have this whole set of cliches that, I call them out on, and I'm like, we need to have a hearing on that. I want findings of fact on that.
And it's not like, what the weirdest thing is? And I thought about saying this because it would just embarrass the whole situation is going to a courtroom where I can't raise my kids, but some other man that my ex chooses can live in the house immediately after I've left and be around my kids, but yet he doesn't see his own kids or pay child support. Yeah. Trust me, his ex-wife reached out to me and he told me all kinds of things. So What an embarrassment that we live in like the United States of step parents. Everyone, Connie, I can raise your children. You can raise my children. Everyone can get into new relationships and raise everyone else's children, but you're taking away our kids to justify Title IV funding and child support extortion money. And you know that any decent parent is going to fight his ass off or her ass off and spend everything he has to get custody of his kids.
Right.
And attorneys who use the excuse, which mine did, you've probably heard this before. Alamance County, North Carolina is not full of geniuses. Is, Your Honor, this is just a child support case wrapped in a custody battle. Meaning, I just don't want to pay for my kids. My kids cost money when I'm raising them. That's why we're paying her child support, because she has them. So if you're saying that I need to pay her when she has them, then when I have them, wouldn't it be costing me money too? What an absurd, stupid logic that not only my exes regurgitated, because she heard her attorney say that.
I know.
That attorney, and if he ever watches this, you can share this with it. You're a buffoon, and you've ruined my children's lives so far. You've taken money away from me and my family that could go towards their college. Instead, it's gone towards your vacations and your spending and your business. And it's disgusting. You're a disgusting human being.
Yeah, and I hear attorneys talk like that all the time in the courtroom. And,
it's bullshit.
I had no idea, when I went to law school, of course, I was already a grown up by the time I went to law school. And I had been, my family had a restaurant business. We'd had a very successful history in the restaurant business. We still had it. And, and I thought I was going to learn the law. And then I was a great debater. And so, we would argue how the law fit the facts. I mean, that's what your whole bar exam is about. Here's the facts and here's the law and how they fit together. And, you get in a courtroom and it's like, so truth depends on what side of the cereal box you're looking at, right? I mean, it may not even be a cereal box depending on which side of the cereal box you're looking at. That's not even really a cereal box, Miss Reguli. That's, it's so bizarre. And so, it's a crazy, it's a horrible, crazy system. And it needs to be totally demolished and built from the bottom up.
Connie, tell them to quit being cowards. Tell these parents you're hurting already. You're willing to, you'd say as a parent that you're willing to suffer and die for your kids, then talk shit to a court system. Talk shit, call them out.
Yeah. I mean, be prepared and, if you have to, and I'll tell you, I mean, I've had some things where I've represented myself on different stuff. Oops, I'm sorry. Is that me?
No, you're fine. Yeah.
Okay. I hear somebody, I think, trying to reach me through Messenger or something, but, hang on, I'm going to shut this down.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Hang on here.
They were like, hey, Connie's live. Let's call her.
Yeah. It's probably one of my kids. So I don't even know. Where were we going? What was I talking about?
We were talking about.
Okay. Yeah. So, representing yourself and being prepared, because I've seen several people through Facebook, where people have really just gone in there and decided to represent themselves. And I mean, I'm just going to tell you, I think people can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you've got to be, and I think maybe I just need to do some videos on the rules of evidence, because, there's some basic rules of evidence that you can learn that will help you. So, but it's, you can do it, but you've got to be prepared. You've got to have copies of your documents. You've got to write yourself notes, so that you don't get bumfudd, get all stuttery and stuff.
Yeah, you do have to. Yeah, it's because I can tell you from experience, although it's starting to dissipate, is the nerves.
Yeah.
I say, hey, this is court's BS, and I'm very comfortable and calm. But when you go in there, it's intimidating, and it shouldn't be. You should be able to be honest and comfortable and say, I need help. Because they're supposed to be there to help you, not for me to. I shouldn't feel scared about a cop, and I shouldn't feel scared about a courtroom if I didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
And the sad thing is I do. So yes, organizing your paperwork, having your points written down. What's some advice you'd give someone who's watching, including myself, who's about to go in for a motion to modify, and he's got his motion and his attachments? Do you need to bring in evidence for a motion to modify, or is that all if it goes to a hearing, or how does that work?
So a couple things. So I don't know North Carolina. I mean, most civil procedure is all kind of follows the federal. So it's pretty standard, but all these courts have their nuances. And if you just kind of set forth the reasons why you should be granted a hearing,
Yeah.
you should make sure that you just ask for that up front and just say, I'm here. I wanted to put before you enough information to show you that I could modify it, or that we should have a hearing on it, because I understand that everything that's attached is not really evidentiary
Right.
admissible,
Right.
But I'll tell you, so I'll say something, since since you already brought it up about there's an attorney on the other side who finds himself to be quite clever. I think one of the things that you need to do in preparing yourself is anticipate that, right?
Oh yeah.
So you need to go into that saying he's going to say some shit, right? He's going to say something really stupid, going to try to make you look bad. You need to write it down when he says
I'm gonna
it.
wear this shirt, so I'm gonna look great.
Well, you need to write it down when he says it. So, let's say he says something about, this is a child support wrapped in a custody matter. And so when you get up, no, excuse me,
You're
we're just
fine.
having something to drink. But so when you get up, and one of the first things that you should say to the court is you should say, no, Your Honor, I heard what counsel said when he said, this is nothing but child support wrapped up in a custody matter. And I want to talk about that right now, because I want you to know, I understand my children need money for food, for clothing, for housing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's senseless to think that I would not understand that.
Right.
However, my children's care on a day-to-day basis, their relationships on a day-to-day basis is in your hands. And until we get through that, until we determine what that needs to be based on the law and the facts, we need to just put that other conversation aside. And you need to just, and without being, and I've used this kind of thing when I get an attorney, because they do it to attorneys too. They do it to me too. They come in and they say some stupid crap.
Goofy, illogical, emotional words.
Oh yeah. And they do it, and I see them do it sometimes to get my client upset. And, I always try to tell my client, look, just let me be the boss here. Just let me be the boss, but I'll get up right away and I'll deflate some of that type of stuff right off the bat, right off the bat, because you're taking attorneys who are driving judges up this emotional ladder, right? And you just need to pull them back down so that they're going to have, some sense of logic in talking to them. Yeah. So that's very, very critical. And I mean, and in just situations like, sometimes I have contracts with people, and if they don't pay me, I sue them and I take them to court. And, sometimes they turn around and they think they can countersue me. I had a guy that just recently did that, and poor guy. I mean, I really felt bad for him because he just bumbled all over himself. But it's like, but I was representing myself in that situation. Right. I just kind of keep drawing it back to, and in that case, if he had said something ugly and I said it, and of course he got real defensive, and I'm like, I'm not here to say he's an ugly person. I'm just here to say this was part of the conflict that we had that caused, this problem. So, it just is what it is. And so, you've got, the more that you can do that and draw the judge back into that conversation, the better you're going to be, because they want to inflate the judge emotionally.
Sure. And you and myself, or whoever's, if you're representing yourself. Yeah. They want to, because that's what they do. They're there to trigger you and to make you look like, make me maybe lose myself emotionally in that moment. And the judge will take a look at that and go, something's wrong here. Yeah. And there's been moments where I've been very upset, and rightfully so. I've been doing this for a while now, so I've gotten all those emotions out. and really done a lot of studying and things. So I'm a little bit better prepared this time. So yeah, I'm nervous, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm finally ready to have a judge see what it is that my issues are, because I've had two attorneys and neither one of them would present those. So I've paid $20,000 out to have nothing. I have nothing.
I know, I hate that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just listen very, very carefully. One of the things that attorneys love to do to pro se litigants is when they are testifying, they love to just beat them up on the stand, right?
Sure.
And they love to double trick them and ask them questions repetitively and make them look like they're lying. And, when I prepare somebody for a trial, I always say, number one, this is not a conversation. So don't answer questions like you're having a conversations with somebody, because somebody asks you, when's the last time you had banana pudding, and you go, I don't know, it's probably like a month ago. And then 10 minutes later somebody says, well, do you remember when we were at that picnic in July? You said that was the first time you'd had banana pudding in 2 years, right? And so if you don't remember, you have to say, I don't really remember when that happened. If you can refresh my recollection with something, or if you have something that helps me remember that, please let me have it and let me see it. Because the judges don't like people, they don't, that they will hang their hat on, oh, he can't tell the truth, or oh, he's lying, right? But yet it's really more, a lot of the time, it's not so much about lying, but it's about perception. So it's a matter of saying, is the sky blue out there? And was the sky blue on Tuesday? And instead of saying, yeah, it was blue, you go, well, it depends on what time of day you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So
I remember being on the stand, and you've probably seen this before. It was during one of our original hearings a couple of years ago, and I got put on the stand, and immediately they were asking me. I was nervous, scared, and they're like, are you the father of Hayden and Nolan? And I was like, yeah. And then they said to me, what are their dates of birth? And I froze for a second or two. They gave me 2 seconds, and when I didn't start speaking, they was like, "You don't know your son's birthdays?" And I was like, "Can you calm down a second?" Like, I am nervous. And I was able, after that, I was able to say it clearly without any assistance. But they were all over you, and it's a tactic. It's ridiculous.
Right. And
And
if
this is the kind
if
of
you ever have to pause like that, the best thing to do to fill the airspace is to say something like, okay, so I don't want to give you the wrong answer, so just give me a moment to think about that, right?
for my son's birthdays.
Yeah, right. Well, you can say,
Hold on.
I'm not a good date person, so give me a minute, right?
I'm going to write them on my hand
calendar. Well, or just say, you know what? I keep it in my phone. I keep it on my calendar. I have reminders for these things, right? This is 2021.
Right.
Everything is in here.
Exactly. So Connie, with the last few minutes, I want you to sort of, we briefly discussed talking about running for office, the 2022 elections, especially in your state, but in every state. And, what is your advice for the push forward in 2022?
Well, so when you look at changes that need to be made in the laws, it comes at 2 levels for anything family related. So now our federal government has their little claws. They've taken our tax dollars and they're dishing our tax dollars back out to the states with all these strings attached to it. So there are federal implications. So we need to just go after and attack Title 4D. We have got to do it, in Title 4E. We've got to be vicious about it.
Right.
And so, that's at the federal level as far as the funding is concerned. There are some things that we can change with the law a little bit. And we need to be willing to, people need to be willing to work with us to do that. And then at the state level, so, as I said before, what's kind of happening at the states and why I hope to be able to have more of a national policy or national program on family policy is these states, these laws in every state are coming out a little bit different, right? I mean, have you noticed that with like the
Right.
shared parenting? It's like
Sure.
you have all these
Preponderance of evidence, clear and convincing, or there's all sorts of different verbiage.
yeah, and it's too weird. I mean, that's too weird. We are one country. I mean, and
Mhm.
even though I believe in the republic and the states, we do have
Parents in Idaho and parents in Florida are no different. We're parents.
right.
What is the deal?
And we all have that constitutional right, and we need to get back down to the constitutional family integrity, which exists not just for parents but for children.
Right.
Okay, children need constitutional attorneys because
Mhm.
children have constitutional rights.
Absolutely.
So from the state level, we need to get our heads together, and people who are willing to be active in the states need to be having conversations. We need to be talking to each other about the kind of bills that we want to take to the state level and just keep pushing them forward. So, I mean, I've appeared at committees and spoken. We need more people who are willing to knock on doors, make phone calls, send emails, go to committees, and just get out there and start pounding the pavement. So I have, for people, I know you're running this in Family Forward Project, for other people who are watching this who are not in Family Forward Project. So that is my Facebook group.
Go over to Family Forward Project group.
Yeah. That is where I do my lives. That is where I post like changes in laws that I see, a lot of news stories we put up there. I have created Family Forward / Family Forward Tennessee, Family Forward Arkansas, Family Forward Pennsylvania. I've created several subgroups to it. Because I've had a lot of people join from Tennessee lately, and I'm trying to get Tennessee families organized so that we can really put some laws together. So I need people from a state or regional level to start looking at how to bring their voice in their region. I mean, we got some states that are very active this year. Right. Texas had a pretty big legislative hearing that they did an awesome job with.
It was today, was it not?
No, there was one they did earlier this year. And then there was a great medical kidnap story on that was done by a reporter, and he put it as a podcast on Wondery called Do No Harm. So if anybody wants to look that up, he did a great job. And the Marshall Project has done some great stories. So keep the narrative, keep the conversation. Don't be, if you're in the child welfare system and you're an imperfect parent, you need to be willing to tell your story and what you're willing to do to be the greatest parent you can be. And, and for dads and moms, and moms who are caught in the see no children life as well, tell that story. Just keep telling it until people get sick of hearing it. So, be willing to be humble and be truthful and be honest about it, and and be willing to say, if I need to do something different, I'll do it. But we've got to have connections. Kids have got to have connections to their moms and their dads.
Absolutely. Here is I'm going to share this real quick because I thought that Americans for Parental Reform in Texas was had a hearing of some kind today. And I believe this is, if I can pull this up, them from today.
Oh, wow.
In the Texas House of Representatives. Now, they posted, I believe this photograph was shared today.
Oh, okay. Texas. So what's the name of that group? Because I'm going to look.
Americans for Parental Equality. And Josh Jaros, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Eric Carroll was there as well. And then some other folks, Mike, no, it wasn't Mike McCarthy, but there's some other people there in the shared parenting movement that are obviously there. There was this isn't all the people that were there. They took this photo today and they had a hearing in the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee. So it's regarding HB 803. So the states are doing, there's movement, there's push.
Yeah, there is.
And so me and Connie are on here right now telling you that don't relent. There's momentum. This is going to happen sooner than later, but it's, we gotta push. We gotta start using platforms. We gotta start speaking to our legislators, run for office. I don't care. Make this a primary issue because it is the issue of all issues. And they're going to pretend like it's not. Many of the things that we're dealing with right now is whether it be issues with our kids, behavioral issues, ADHD, autism, anxiety, depression, suicides, alcoholism, teen pregnancy, everything that's sort of imploding society is the destruction of the family.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yes. Well, and families have not had good information, right?
Right.
And so, there's not really a good place to go, like to really learn about what's going to happen in family court if you go through a divorce, or, what's going to happen if your child has Down syndrome and goes to school. So,
Right.
if we paid more attention to really provide, I mean, we've got incredible professional, knowledgeable people out there now on all kinds of issues, autism and Down syndrome and but it's all driven to putting kids under the control of the government instead of enabling the parents to help.
And medicating them. Let's
Yeah.
medicate them. They have anxiety. Oh, it's not because dad's not around. It's because they need medication. There's something
Right.
wrong with them,
Right.
So it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah.
We're going to have you on again because I want you to update us on the things that you have going on. What do you want to tell everybody before we go, and where can they find you?
Well, the Family Forward group, Family Forward Project group on Facebook is really just the best place to kind of follow what's going on. I do have a page, my own personal profile, of course, Connie Reguli on Facebook is still public.
Yeah.
You can check in there once in a while. I put a lot of my conservative political beliefs on there, and I try to keep my political beliefs off of the Family Forward Project and keep it more on task. And then you can always catch up on my YouTube channel and just watch the videos there, and I just talk about what I'm learning about. So if there's some new stories that have coming out in the news, or some new cases, or what I'm doing, pulling open records requests, talking to there you go.
There's Family Forward Project. We shared your YouTube. I wanted to share this real quick.
Yeah,
So this is actually where we're streaming live, and you can probably see us streaming live right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, go check out Family Forward Project group and become a member and see what Connie's up to, and myself. Go to We the Parents group, Family Forward Project. Go check out Connie, and guys, we are the change, and we got to do this together. So thank you so much, Connie, for being on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And we'll speak soon. I want you to have a great evening. Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.